latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for November 30th. Well, it's all come down to this, the final Tropical Weather Bulletin of 2021, and it's not boring us, with the addition of a storm by the name of Nyatoh that just got named not too long ago, this day 334 of the worldwide year. 89 storms is now the count for 2021. Of course, that is 3 away from the average 92. In the Atlantic, it's the last day of hurricane season, and rightfully so. There is nothing active and nothing expected in the next 5 days. So long, Atlantic hurricane season. You provided us another long year. Definitely glad that you're done and over with. Hopefully there's nothing in December. In the Eastern Pacific, after quite a depressing season due to the 19 tropical storm to 9 hurricane to 2 major hurricane count, surprised that we got a ratio kind of worse than 2020, but we did it. But that season is now over as well. In the Western Pacific, it is back to being active for once here with Tropical Storm Nyatoh now a thing. There's also MS-94W, which thinks that the Western Pacific is apparently too good for it to form there, and therefore it will be going into the Bay of Bengal, where chances are going to be increasing for development there. And you can see it on there as well. It looks like we could be seeing some impacts across parts of East and Northeast India in association with 94W, so this is going to be something to watch as it gets redesignated as a BOB invest. There's also 92S, but that has a 0% chance of formation at the moment. Here's the track forecast for Tropical Storm Nyatoh for the next 5 days, and you can see that the forecast peak has dropped off quite considerably. Of course, the Joint Typhoon Warning Center was forecasting this to become a Category 4. It has been since dropped to a Category 2 peak, although there are some questions about what the models are trying to indicate, with them now trying to indicate some kind of random loop after day 5, so that's something to be watching for sure. So here's a look at the dead Atlantic and what is going to be staying a dead Atlantic. You can see quite the large frontal system moving off into the Atlantic, and then of course there's really not much else going on as well, so it's really just a dead picture over here, and that is supposed to stay that way, thankfully. In the Eastern Pacific, it's also completely dead here with nothing of relevance whatsoever, unless you really want to talk about that random cloud that is trying to make its way toward Hawaii. I mean, there's really not much to talk about, there's some disturbances, but of course nothing's going to be developing into a system here in the next 5 days either. However, in the Western Pacific, there is of course Nyatoh, a pretty broad system to be completely honest here. Expected to recurve towards the northwest and northeast, but of course after that there's a whole bunch of confusion as to what's going on. Of course, we're going to be having storm updates that will cover the latest you need to know on Nyatoh, and you can kind of see 94W way to the left. Pretty much most of it is off of that map at this point. In the North Indian Ocean, you can see what's going on. 94W is pretty much located and about to cross over Malaysia and into the Bay of Bengal. Arabian Sea is looking relatively dry, as it has been. And of course, December is usually that final month that we see activity before it winds down again. You can see a better look at Nyatoh, and it's not exactly your typical Western Pacific tropical storm, but it is the first since we saw Malo back in October, so it has been quite a while since we last saw a storm here, and we always know that the Western Pacific storms are notorious for their late season destruction. Hopefully this is not one of those cases. Here are the Eastern Pacific sea surface temperatures, and you can see it's around 26 to 28 throughout most places, unless you're that random section in south of Mexico that for some reason goes down to 25. In the Caribbean, it's looking around 27 to 28 still, and in the main development region also 27 to 28. Gulf of Mexico waters are cooling, along with the fact that the subtropical waters are also cooling as well. Obviously the South Atlantic is looking rather warm as well. North Indian Ocean is around 27 to 28 degrees Celsius throughout much of the region. The same can be said around the Arabian Sea as well. In the Western Pacific, we're looking at those temperatures around 28 degrees, mainly confined south of the latitude of the northern end of the Philippines. Of course, as you head towards Indonesia, those temperatures are around 30 degrees Celsius, and once you get into the southern hemisphere, those temperatures are around 27 to 28 degrees Celsius, so we are starting to get into that habitable environment for tropical cyclone development. Going on over into the sea surface temperature anomalies, you can see the La Niña becoming much more pronounced as we continue to progress further into its evolution. And the Atlantic, it's looking above average with the exception of a small part of the Gulf Stream. Eastern Pacific is looking more sporadically below average, and the Western Pacific is of course looking above average. The Southern Hemisphere looking above average to the southwestern Indian Ocean. On this day in 2006, we had two systems active. We had Typhoon Durian and Tropical Storm Anita. Durian was about to make landfall in the Philippines, causing a pretty wide swath of destruction with over 2,000 fatalities and $130 million in terms of damage. A name that would eventually go on to get retired, of course. Anita would continue along the Mozambique Channel. Of course, this is our final tropical weather bulletin, so please be sure to check out Cyclone History on Twitter. It is where you'll be able to see the future on this days as we head into the off-season. Well, that's a wrap for us in terms of tropical weather bulletins. Of course, the Atlantic and Eastern Pacific hopefully shouldn't be getting any more storms soon. But in the Central Pacific, of course, we still gotta do a ritual. And at this point, where did I go wrong? I lost Hone somewhere along the bitter... Okay, anyways, Western Pacific now is Ray, followed by Malakas. And in the North Indian Ocean, the next name is Jawad and Asani. Moving on over into the southwestern Indian Ocean, the next two names on that list is Anna and Batsire. The Australian region, we're looking for Ruby and Seth, and in the South Pacific, we're looking at for Cody. It's been great doing tropical weather bulletins for you guys this year, and of course we'll be back to kick off the next season, May 15th, 2022.